Les Gold put everything at risk and almost lost everything. The king of pawn turned his pawn shop in Detroit into a reality TV business. Things weren't as easy as they seemed, though. Employee betrayals, money problems, and a deal that was so shocking that it was covered all over the world. When Hardcore Pawn stopped airing, his story didn't end. What really happened next is very different from what fans thought would happen. What happened to Les Gold after all these years? Crazy people, big deals, and chaos are what Les Gold used to build Hardcore Pawn. But no one thought the real trouble would start in his own shop. American Jewelry and Loan was more than just a TV. It was a business, a family business, and a place where money, people, and fights were at stake. The business was run smoothly by Les, his son Seth, and his daughter Ashley. They had to deal with crazy customers, crazy talks, and even fights every once in a while. But their own workers, who they trusted the most, were the ones who betrayed them the most. You'd think that people who work in a pawn shop that is shown on national TV would be more careful, right? There are security cams all over the place, and the Gold family is watching their every move. Millions of people are also watching. Not really, though. Some workers got too cozy. And one of them was someone Les Gold never thought he would meet. Let us review one of the most important stories in the history of Hardcore Pawn. A trusted worker was found stealing in broad daylight. Not just any worker. Joe is in charge of protection at the shop. Yes, you did hear that right. The person who was supposed to keep the store safe was the one who stole from it. He wasn't just taking a few cheap things here and there. Jewelry worth tens of thousands of dollars has been stolen. Les thought it was a bad idea. It didn't make sense. It was a trap that he set. He left a valuable diamond ring in a certain place, with just enough of it hidden that it looked like it had been forgotten. The ring wasn't there the next morning. Les isn't the type to freak out. He had a feeling that something was wrong, but he needed proof. Because that's what any pawn shop owner would do. He looked at the security video. That's when he saw it. Someone stole jewelry from Joe, who he trusted with his business, his workers, and his family. Over several days, not just once or twice. Let's be honest, Les might have lost it at that point. He had been seeing this person for more than 3 years. Someone who was almost like family. But he didn't lose it. Instead, he was smart. He called the police. It seemed like nothing was wrong, but he made sure Joe stayed in the store. It could have been the hardest part, that it would be weird to talk to someone who just stole from you while acting like nothing was wrong. That's what Les needed to do. This is because Joe would run away if he got worried. Les wasn't going to let that happen. Joe went into the shop like he did every other day, not knowing what was there for him. Les was already setting the trap at the same time. The cops showed up. The CCTV video was put on. And Joe knew right away when he was told to go to the back. He was done. But now comes the crazy part. When asked, Joe revealed that he had stolen. Not a single lie or excuse. He just told the truth. Then things got really crazy. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a bunch of stolen jewelry. More than $77,000 worth of goods. Let's take a break. $77,000. You're not just putting a few rings in your pocket. That's a big steal. He had been doing it for a long time. The police moved right away. Joe was caught right away. One of Les Gold's most valued workers was gone in an instant. But American Jewelry and Loan had an inside job before. In fact, the show showed a much bigger issue. Employees are stealing from Les right in front of him. It wasn't just Joe. There were more. It felt like a punch in the gut every time. Ashley and Seth were very angry. They began to question everyone. Was there something bigger going on behind the scenes? How long had this been going on? Could you trust anyone? I have to tell you that it wasn't easy to work at American Jewelry and Loan. Even though the Golds were people still found ways to get ahead. Some workers got too used to their jobs. Some people thought they could trick the system. But in a place where every wall is covered with cameras, they would get caught in due course. Things get even stranger from here. This wasn't something from TV. This happened in real life. Bobby J. Tees, who used to work at Hardcore Pawn, later said in an interview that everything people saw was real. There was no lying about it. No planned drama. These thefts, they really did happen. Bobby said that the shop changed after Joe was caught. It didn't feel right. There was a lot of tension. All of a sudden every worker felt like they were being watched closely. And to be honest, they were. Take a look. Les Gold had millions of dollars worth of goods in that shop. Things like gold, diamonds, watches, and high-end tech could be taken away in an instant if the wrong person became too greedy. The Golds had seen everything. There were con artists trying to rip people off, angry people over low deals, and even fake police officers trying to rob the store. But when their own workers were the ones making the threats, that hit in a different way. But here's the thing. This was just one of many incidents that hit Hardcore Pawn. There was something even bigger going on at the same time as all of this. Something that would make the shop, the show, and Les Gold's fame go through the roof. There are many years before Hardcore Pawn that we need to look back at in order to understand how Les Gold became the brave businessman that millions of people saw on the show. It took time for American jewelry and loan to grow. It wasn't just a matter of luck or one smart purchase. Years of hard work in a field where one bad deal could cost you thousands of dollars and where putting your trust in the wrong person could cause you to lose everything. Les learned those lessons early on, and one of them almost killed him. Les worked in his grandfather's pawn shop in 1971, long before he was a TV star. One normal day turned deadly. It was December 31st, around noon, a thief with a gun stormed into the store. There has always been a lot of risk in pawn shops, especially in big towns like Detroit. They deal in valuables like cash, jewelry, gold, and high-end tech, which is exactly what thieves want. Les had been in trouble before, but this time it got worse in a way that would stay with him forever. Gunshots were heard inside the store during the chaos of the robbery. A police officer who went to the scene of the crime was shot and killed. The death of another man that day turned what should have been a normal afternoon into a tragedy that Les will never forget. He was there. He saw it take place. After that, he knew that nothing in life was certain, even though he wasn't hurt physically. Everything could be taken away in an instant. A lot of people who go through something like that never fully get better. They are scared all the time. They avoid anything that might be dangerous. Did the wrong thing. He made a choice instead of letting it break him. Fear would never rule his life, and no one would ever use him or his business without his permission. He changed how he dealt with people, deals, and even his own workers after that. Then when Hardcore Pawn became very popular, Les ran his shop with an iron fist because of this. This business was more than just a pawn shop. It was such a big business that it did more deals in one day than some banks. Over 1,000 people came through those doors every day, with 600 to 800 new loans being made, and 300 to 400 people coming in to get their things back. There is no room for weakness when you have that much to deal with. There's no time to think again. That way of thinking showed up in his personal beliefs. It was important to earn trust, because once it was lost, there was no going back. This is why it hurt so much when betrayal didn't come from the outside, after all he had done, and after living through one of the scariest times of his life. It wasn't a hidden thief or a mad customer. Someone he had put his trust in, someone who worked behind the counter of his store, sent it to him. Les had always thought that people should be given another chance. He knew that things could get hard, and not everyone had a perfect record. Because of this, he has hired back workers who had quit in questionable situations over the years. Some of them were having problems at home, or had made bad choices, but Les gave them another chance if he thought it was worth the risk. That was the case with Amy and Rich, two workers whose return to America
and Loan had already made things tense behind the scenes.
Amy had worked there before. She left in a way that made Les doubt her promise though. She was never seen again after she quit. No notice, no reason, nothing. She was there one day and not there the next. Usually Les would have fired her, but her uncle, who had worked for the company for years and been a faithful worker, asked Les to give her another chance. He agreed even though he knew it wasn't a good idea. Seth, who has always been the more cautious one, strongly disagreed with the choice, saying it was easy for someone who had already left once to do it again. Rich, on the other hand, had worked for the business for a long time. He had been trained by Les, and at one point, he had full faith in his skills. Things changed over time though. Rich began making choices that were not clear-cut, and Les noticed a pattern of behavior that made him feel uneasy. He kept him on though, because he thought that training and experience would pay off in the end. That's when Les didn't know that these decisions, these second chances, were going to go wrong in ways he didn't expect. People who used to be loyal to the company started taking shortcuts and making choices that put the shop at risk. In some cases they did things that made Les question everything he had worked for. The worst part, though, it wasn't just bad management or workers not doing their jobs. It had to do with something more dangerous and serious. Les Gold built American Jewelry and Loan into one of the best pawn shops in the country over many years. There was more at stake than just buying and selling. It was about staying alive. He had seen the business change, risen to every challenge, and grown a single shop into a chain with multiple locations that served over 1,000 customers every day. He was already a legend in the pawn game by the time Hardcore Pawn aired in 2010. Of course, fame brought more attention. Behind the scenes, things were getting worse. It wasn't just for TV when Les, Seth, and Ashley fought. In the family, there was a real power fight going on. Seth was driven and always looking for ways to bring the business up to date. He would sometimes make deals without telling his dad about them if he thought it was the right thing to do. Ashley, on the other hand, wasn't as involved in running the shop every day, but when she was, she didn't think twice about challenging her dad and brother. The fights were real. There was real competition between Seth and Ashley, and the family felt like it was about to break up at times. Les never lost control, though. He had been through too much to let family problems or betrayals at work get to him. He had lived through an armed theft and seen people lose everything in an instant. He knew that the only way to win in this business was to keep going. After the end of Hardcore Pawn in 2015, he didn't slow down. American Jewelry and Loan was still doing well, and Les and Seth were still running the business together. Even though the show was over, the work wasn't. Les Gold stayed a big name in the loan business, while other reality TV stars went out of style. In the business world, he was still very involved, but not as much on social media as his son. Seth took over most of the public-facing tasks and often posted reports on TikTok breaking down important moments from the show, and sometimes having Les join in for his opinion. Les had already made a huge fortune by this point. He owned several businesses, had hundreds of workers, and had millions of dollars worth of goods in stock. His net worth was thought to be around $3.5 million, which was the result of years of hard work and smart business choices. But even though he was successful, stories began to spread. It had been going on for years that strange online stories said Les Gold had died. People on social media believed these fake death scams, which made fans wonder if their favorite TV pawn shop owner was really dead. All of the time, the reports turned out to be false. Les was still living and well, and he was still running the business that made him great. As time went on, though, the pawn shop began to show something much scarier. It wasn't just about cool items, heated talks, or making sure workers did their jobs. Real survival was what it was all about. American Jewelry and Loan has seen a big change in the kinds of people who come in over the past few years. People who wanted to buy, sell, or get cash quickly had always come to the shop, but Les started to notice a pattern. It was getting harder and harder for people to come in and make money. They didn't sell rare coins, trinkets, or expensive jewelry to make extra cash. They had to pawn everyday things to make ends meet. In the past, pawn shops were only used when you had to pay for something quickly.